So Earl, today at Tiffin, you're going to be talking about changing demographics.
Right.
Do you think the change in global demographics, is that good for the future of the beef industry, or is that something we should be concerned about?
Oh, I think the global change in demographics is very positive for the Canadian beef industry. It has some significant changes country by country as you go through the global population shift from 2010 to 2025 to 2050. But ultimately, in the end, what it means for the potential for Canadian beef cattle, from my view, is very positive.
So why do you think it's so positive?
Well, if you take a look at a country like the United States, for example, currently our largest market for Canadian beef, the only developed country in the world that really has a significant population increase over the next 25 years. Europe and the United States in 2050 have roughly the same population. And so huge growth right next door in a country where beef production is going to struggle against their political desire to have some fuel independence through biofuels. And so there's some very interesting dynamics happening there. If you look at India, for example, India, a continent that will have in 2050 1.7 billion people, 1.6 billion people, where half a kilogram increase in consumption across that number removes them from the export picture in international beef trade. So Australia's beef will logically stay in Southeast Asia. Who's going to supply this other market?
You mentioned India, but when we look at all the BRIC countries, we call BRIC, is that really where the opportunities are? Obviously, Brazil is already consuming a lot of beef, producing and consuming.
Oh yeah, Brazil will, in the next 25 years, create another Canadian population inside of their country. And eating as much beef, probably by that point, as Canadians do. So sure, their production's growing, but their consumption's growing just as rapidly. And their whole economy of Brazil especially is picking up very, very quickly, more quickly than India's is. But the population scale in India is huge. China, everybody looks to China, but in 2050 there's fewer people in China than there are today. And so see, when you look at all of those mixes, where does the beef come from? Where does it go to? Who's going to produce it? Who's going to consume it? Western Canada looks like a very possible winner in a demographic shift that we're seeing.
So what are some of those demographic shifts? Obviously, we know where the opportunities are in terms of population, from the new consumers. But what about the eating habits? Or what are some of the demographics that you see changing?
So if you look at Canada and our demographic, and I'm a baby boomer, I used to eat all the beef you could put in front of me. We had
7 days a week.
7 days a week we had beef on our table. Today it's once a week, twice a week, because I'm getting older. And it's viewed as not quite as healthy, or you don't digest it.
You probably realize there's a variety of things out there too.
Oh, there's all kinds of stuff out there, but as the population ages, it consumes less beef. We just know that. In Japan, that population is aging dramatically. So their beef consumption will go down rather than up, and their population total numbers is dropping dramatically. Same in Italy, same scenario that you've got there. If you look at Argentina, a country where the population growth is still fairly significant, so they're adding 6 million people by 2015, 2016, and a country where the politics haven't been favorable to the beef producer, the cowboy in Argentina. So, for example, in that country, you're consuming about 65 kilograms per person beef per year, and Canada is about 32, 33. And because beef is cheap there, it's a cheap source of protein. Because of the structure of the marketplace, because of the structure of the politics can change, but it takes the time to turn around that marketing aspect and to drop that consumption out of the marketplace in Argentina.
So you grew up in the beef bit. You grew up around cattle. Yeah. A lot of your career has been spent on marketing grains and oilseeds.
Yes,
do you see, is there a similar battle for those two as you try to develop new markets for grains and oilseeds in comparison to beef?
Certainly there is. Like, you look at China, and China is increasing its beef consumption all the time. And in China, you're working between 250 and 280 million people that are just as wealthy as Canadians are. And they're consuming more beef every day. So what we're seeing in China is increased market demand for feed grains that may have gone into food-based products, whether it's noodles or other cereal-based food ingredients now coming into livestock. So we're buying your protein source through beef, through pork, through poultry. And so there's a very close linkage, as there is in the US with ethanol. So the more corn you put into an ethanol plant, sure, you get a third of it back in a DDG, but it reduces the available supply of feed in a marketplace.
So a lot of times, does the change in appetite or change, how much does the economic situation globally, we heard about Europe and Greece and the US, how much does that affect?
Economics are probably the first point of impact. You can link it back to the grain marketing side, because we look at countries as their economies improve, people will move from a rice-based diet to a wheat-based diet. And as the economies move, they'll move to more fish, more shrimp, where you've got a low-cost protein source, to poultry, to pork, to beef. When we travel selling grain, when our customer in Southeast Asia wants to take you out for a special meal, they'll try and take you and buy you beef, because that shows they can afford it. So as your income goes up, as an economy improves, it's very clear to watch the beef consumption go up.
But isn't that a challenge then for the beef industry? Because it is, you mentioned that beef is one of the more expensive proteins in a lot of areas. Isn't that a challenge for the beef industry as we look at these new markets? Having Chinese or some of the people, India, being able to afford it.
Right. Of course it is. So that's where the marketing is so essential. So with Canadian Beef Export Federation and others in Canada doing the marketing, making sure that consumers around the world, as their economies are improving, understand the value of that beef protein is really a critical point. One of the pieces that we're going to struggle with, I think, going forward is some of the climate change pieces, and does it create more greenhouse gases to create a pound of beef protein than chicken protein? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But we're going to have to be able to market through those pieces, because the demand will be there. People prefer beef if they can afford to buy it.
For sure. Thanks, Earl, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Oh, good. Thank you.